Hey, Chris Liepe here with the difference between soundproofing and room treating. They're very different things. They require very different approaches and different materials, and there's tons of confusion surrounding these two terms, what they mean, what they actually are. I recently got a chance to help build and move into a new studio. So I had to go through the process of discovering how I could better isolate this space from outside elements, soundproofing, and I had to make sure that it sounded okay when I was singing or playing instruments, treating the rooms. Now, if you listen really carefully in the background, you can actually hear a bit of an electric guitar player practicing over in another room of the house. Me treating this room and putting foam on the walls is not going to keep that sound out. Me treating this room for sounding good with acoustic treatment isn't going to keep the lawnmower on the other side of the window out, that sound. It's not going to keep that out. Nor is it going to do a very good job of keeping the sound that I produce in the studio in the studio. If you've got a big drum set going and people are still probably going to hear it a little bit outside or in the other wall or whatever. And here's what some of the confusion is fueled by. If I go to sweetwater.com and I type in soundproofing, you notice it says soundproofing foam. I'm just going to say soundproofing. And you get this stuff. You get room systems. You get this mini vocal thing, portable vocal booth. This may have a bearing, although not a very effective bearing, on the sound going into your mic, but it's not going to keep sounds out. You're not soundproofing anything. If we go back here, we look at some of the other offerings in this category. Now if we scroll down, we see this ISO booth. It's a very small thing where we're like trapping the sound. These things don't really sound that good. They trap the sound going into the mic. They do keep stuff out, but it doesn't give you the desired open effect. I'll do another video on what's the best way to capture live instruments and vocals in light of acoustic treatment. It's not these small ISO boxes. But this right here, a drum booth, we're getting closer to soundproofing and a little bit of room treatment there as well. This stuff, complete room kits for your studio, and I can see why they put it when you type in soundproofing, because that's what people would put in their search thing. This is not soundproofing. This is room treatment for acoustic adjustments so that the stuff that you perform in your studio sounds right. Now, if you're watching this video and you already understand this difference, you're probably just going, okay, well, fine. But I get so many questions about this all the time that I thought it was time to make a video on it. In order to soundproof, in order to keep sounds out of your studio and keep the stuff that's in your studio from getting outward, this is about construction. This is about building materials. It's about building methods. Things like drop ceilings, decoupling the outer structure from the inner structure, building rooms within rooms. And I got to do some of that in this space, but not as much as I would if I really went all out, because this isn't a house. This is in my basement. It's a home studio. I didn't have an unlimited budget to spend making this place what I wanted it to be. So in order to do a little bit of soundproofing, I built that back wall. We rebuilt that back wall. We made it extra thick, and I put really thick foam insulation in the wall. I also made sure that this big double wall had a little bit of space in between so that the sound would reach that one wall, be rejected, that insulation, that extra thick thing would reject some of that sound, but then there's some space there, so we're not creating a resonance. The sound that gets through that first wall doesn't resonate with the second wall. So I created a little bit of a gap, and you can see that back on this window, how it's been designed as well. This is not only to create a cool aesthetic look for the studio, but there are 2 windows there with space in between. The other thing that I did from a construction point of view here is I built the isolation booth on that side so that we had to go through an outer room to get to an inner room. So I have 2 doors to open and close before I get into the area that I want to be extra quiet. It's not the quietest isolation booth, so if I really need to make sure and be courteous to the people above me and make sure that sound isn't bleeding in, I just need to work around people's schedules. But this room is way more quiet because I built this wall. This wall is also a double wall in addition to having the window. And then we've got the other wall and the other door. So that keeps sound out of here. The other thing that really is helpful when you're thinking about soundproofing is the location within the house. You know, where is it? You can blow insulation into a ceiling, but if your kitchen's right above you, that's going to be a problem. Okay, so we've established that soundproofing is construction-based things and things to keep in mind even when it comes to keeping sound out and keeping sound in. Room treatment is a lot less expensive and it's a lot easier to do. And you can really go crazy with both soundproofing from a construction standpoint and room treating from a math and measurements and materials standpoint. And you can even hire acousticians, which is something that I'll be doing and sharing with you guys as I learn with this room eventually. But initially, if you want to treat your room, it's about listening and using a combination of absorbing and diffusing materials. So things like I have on the back wall there, those wood things that you see, those are diffusers. When the sound comes into that box, it goes everywhere. Whereas the foam that you see absorbs the sound, but it doesn't absorb all the sound. It absorbs mainly mid frequencies and high frequencies, very little low frequencies. Bass traps, the things you see in the corners of this room, help absorb low end. These particular bass traps are not that great at absorbing low end. They make better ones that are denser, that are not just made out of foam. And when you're placing all these things, if you don't have the budget to hire someone, or you don't go through the process of making measurements and doing all those other considerations, start placing things in a non-parallel, variety-oriented way. Use your ear. Sing and play in your space. Clap, shout, walk around, see where there are flutter echoes and reflections, and start putting things up in a way that looks appealing and that starts to make a difference in the sound. And remember this, nothing's going to be perfect. We want to get to the point to where we want to use our space creatively. Go that direction and have that perspective as you're setting up your home studio. I hope this has been helpful. Leave comments, ask questions. If you would like to go deeper with me in recording, in learning how to track bass and guitar and vocals and mix and work with drum loops, click the link below and join my free recording course. And we'll go from just talking about studio setup to really making some music together. We'll see you for more.